the trailblazers in that field. Tell us about FinTech.
Yeah. So I know we've talked so much on, as friends and expanded the friend circle.
Yeah.
FinTech, yeah, that's, people talk about it, but not really if you're not in that field, right?
Yeah.
So financial technology is the field I'm in. I've started off as an engineer and then moved on to making sure quality of engineering products are fine, and then overall fintech is all the technology that goes into making sure financial applications that you work day to day, that is either in a form of app or in the digital form, is up and running. So anything related to technology that goes into financials is in that fintech space.
Yeah, because when we hear it or we think about it, we're probably like, "Oh, that's a little too technical," but it's really just merging finance and technology together,
right.
delivering service and products. How did you get into this field? Like, what were you like as a young woman to create this type of career where you're like solving all these problems and things like that? Like, what were you like as a young woman?
Yeah, and I think that's a question that comes up all the time. How do like women or young girls end up in technology, or like what prompted anyone? And specifically myself, it was interest, also by accident, I would say as well. Growing up, I loved math, and that's where I wanted to go explore fields in mathematics. So during my high school and high school years, I opted in for STEM related subjects, in the thoughts of eventually I didn't even know what I wanted to be. You go everywhere. I'm like, do I want to be a teacher or a professor? Right. I did enjoy solving problems. I also enjoyed reaching out to communities and working with communities, even as a young student, mentoring juniors. As well. And then because I was doing mathematics, I got selected to go to college for engineering. At the same time, I also got a scholarship to do information systems, which is computer engineering plus management in engineering. So because I got a scholarship, I ended up choosing that, obviously. And then they also gave me the opportunity to work as an engineer for a company, and they are the ones who actually sponsored me for my college. So obviously, rather than just doing engineering, traditional engineering, that's why I say it's more like an accident. I got this opportunity, I got the scholarship, I'm like, I'll take it, and I got the opportunity to work. So that was super cool. When you're about to go to college, you not only get to go to college, but you also get to work in a professional job. So interest / accident, a lot of things combined is how I ended up ending up in this industry or the field.
So like at home, like what was it like growing up? Like was your mother or your father into mathematics? Of like where did that spark come from?
Yeah, both my parents were super smart. They were teachers, principals. Their mission in life was to really educate children, not just their own. They've worked with our communities. I grew up in Sri Lanka. They've educated thousands of children, and my father was a big influence. He actually worked with the Ministry of Education in Sri Lanka to bring in English as an education back into our country, where it starts from primary education, and then create a lot of the STEM programs as well.
Okay.
And then when I did start off with engineering on the technical field, once he saw like how much impact and how much change it was bringing on, not only to opportunities that was creating for myself, he also worked with the Ministry of Education to create more computer-based educations back in Sri Lanka, helping other children
Okay.
to evolve.
So like you were in a household of change makers.
I would say so.
So like you were destined, like Dee was really destined to be a change maker in her
That
own
was
right.
my goal in
Yeah.
life, in comparison to, you know, educating children
Yeah.
and what my parents have done. I always think back, like, what is the impact we are making, right?
Mhm.
Like, I know we do impact individuals and industry, but you know, it's a whole different spectrum of impact
Right.
when you
right.
talk about children, educating them, bringing that into the impact. But I would say my parents always would be that inspiration because they were just change makers.
Yeah. So what was a class that you took in college that you feel really helped propel you in the field that you are in today? Because we have young women who are interested in engineering, and today, you know, after watching this interview, they may be interested in FinTech. So what were some of your courses that you were excited about, or even a challenge that it was to you?
Right.
Yeah.
I would say databases. I know it sounds super boring
Yeah.
or like, you know, what does that even mean? It is how you store the data, anything that you do in the back end. It relates to, you know, mathematically how things are computed as well. I enjoyed it because you had to solve simple ways of storing the data and then querying it back into your programs and implementing systems. So personally, that, you know, one subject. But I think the program I took was a combination of management as well as engineering. So that gave a balance between not only the technology side,
Mhm.
but also to bring in the management and leadership skills. What are things you have to, like management styles, just prepping you from a framework, because I think just knowing my personality, I'm a very social person, so I do like not only the engineering work, but
Yeah.
working with people, to, you know, develop. And you know, every year, it's not just from a college time, it's definitely something where you have to learn every day. Technology changes as we are sitting here and speaking, you know, it's that fast pace. So that's also another exciting factor personally for me, because every day is a new challenge because there's a new technology. Even things that you know has changed in a week or two. So you really have to not only challenge yourself, but keep educating yourself. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
At the same time.
It changes so much, and you know, like you started you know, earlier prior to the social media digital age.
Right.
So like seeing things now and how they evolve, like what's your take on social media and what you're doing in your field? Like how is that making an impact?
Yeah. Oh my God. I was telling my kids how I remembered about 200 phone numbers by memory, because you had to call your friends. By, you know, you didn't have the cell phones to touch a name and like dial in, which came in later on in, you know, late teenage, early work years, but that was, you had to remember everybody's phone numbers. But going into social media, you know, we can go on forever around social media, its impact. I do use it, but after work hours, I try to not be on any media. I try to spend time with my kids. But there is a big positive impact on social media as well, to a lot of things that we do on the FinTech space. Social media also gives people the opportunity to educate people, because if you go into the financial sector, there is the financial literacy side, which is much more fun to learn things if you're through social media, if there are channels that we can steer people towards, but there is also the financial risk and crimes and all the financial identity theft that happens, which is easier to educate people, I feel, through social media, because that's a quicker way to reach a bigger community and a bigger group versus sending a note or a message. Like, people don't read things. So social media is good when you have a positive message or we want to educate people. That's a good channel to get to people in a smarter way.
What's something in your field today that you still use prior to the digital age?
Oh my God, that's a fun question. I think something that this is kind of work related, but I would say which we are going back to is that community engagement, right? When I started, a lot of technology products were geared towards how can we take that human part out and make it fully digitized so people can pick up a product and go towards it. I think we are now understanding that actually we want that community engagement back onto our apps or our financial products, or we want to see how people are interacting with software to monitor not only humans' behavior, but to get more social engagement. So it goes back to, the human factor. You can't fully automate that. But how do we improve technology more to get more social engagement, to get more people to look at an app or view that? So that's, I know it's not a direct thing that we never used and we used in the past and we are still using it. But I feel that social factor still is a key driver for any business. You cannot take that community engagement and the social factor out.
Especially right now, due to, the pandemic, missing that human connection and then re-engaging.
Right.
So that's a big deal. How do we re-engage? Because technology is driving a lot.
Right.
But I think we're noticing from disconnecting in certain type of ways that we need people.
Right. And a lot of people's behaviors have changed. We are seeing that people want a digital first experience. Traditionally, as I said, in our space, financial technology, where if you take a bank, nowadays people don't want to, or our customers, or in general, the new demographics do not want to physically go into a bank, sit and talk to a banker to open a bank account. They want a digital first experience. However, I also feel, once that digital first experience occurs, after that, we do need to engage back with the customers to bring in, what do they want to do? How do they want their financial, what are the new products they want? How do they want to interact with the applications in the future? So it's important we continue to stay engaged on that aspect to bring what they need back to the digital experience.
And so I know you manage in the field of finance, but would you consider yourself always being awesome at managing your personal finances? We often, all of us have stories about how we weren't the best, and then we just became really great at managing our finances. Like what tips do you have for women?
Yeah, so I would say I'm in a way lucky that I grew up in Sri Lanka. Despite all the other amazing things I've learned, our culture is so that you only spend what you have, and that is kind of instilled on you from a young age. Credit factor wasn't a big thing. People taking loans and doing credit. Now all countries have evolved to that, but it was, luckily for me, that was not something people opt into. So if you don't have the money, you don't buy anything, buy what you want. Like you have to pick.
Right.
Oh,
So
we
like
have
at
to
what
work for
age
it.
did they, like what age did they start you having those like financial literacy talks?
So that's an interesting question. We didn't have a whole lot of financial literacy. What you look at like today when you talk about financial courses in the education system, it was more in the lifestyle.
Right.
It was built into it, which is I think what is missing even here. Right, like it's not in, because it's very credit based and loan based social how people live. That education doesn't come from your families or background in general. If you, I'm not saying everybody's like that, but then in an educational side, there isn't a specific course or a subject that is offered to kids today talking about those basic things. Although one would think it's like obvious, like do a financial planning and then spend what you have on each of the categories. So as I said, growing up, just because of cultural impact, you had to plan because it's how we grew up or how we were coached to live. But now, I mean, now there are actually tools too, right? Like a basic tool, you have an entertainment budget, you have whether it's a loan, student loan, mortgage, depending on what you have. There are easy things. You can just plug in the numbers based on your income and kind of get that view as well. But I think everyone needs to take a view of that from a young age, even from like teenage. I think it's important to teach our children, like if they want something, like, okay, do you have the money? How are you going to work towards it? And then, which one, once you do earn that, the amount or what they want to do, are they ready to then make that purchase? So it's important to instill on that. I know there's newer applications, financial applications that are out there that are training, or like shows based apps that are rewarding kids. Some people could choose to do that, but having that conversation with your kids or youngsters would be the first step, and then also continuing to have those conversations on how to categorize your spending and then continue to monitor that, and then reflect back every year. Do I have to do any changes next year? I know, for example, now people may not, like with the pandemic, people don't go out as much as, at least I've stopped compared to before. Then we reevaluate and see, do we want to travel more? Is that something we want to do? Or so it gives you, once you start managing basic finances, it gives you opportunity to plan things for yourself, for children, and for future. So it's very important.
You're definitely saying, like, we definitely need to make sure we have those conversations with the kids.
Yes.
Okay. Is there two other things that you think we should do as ladies?
I think women have, I'm biased of course, but women have the biggest impact because we are sisters, mothers, daughters, and then we have a bigger impact as a mom.